Hi there, and welcome to Out There, a Cryptid podcast. I'm Josh, and today we are talking about the Leviathan, a colossal sea monster shrouded in both biblical lore and modern mystery. This creature is said to embody chaos itself and lurk in the darkest depths of the ocean, waiting to resurface. Let's dive in. Can you believe episodes come out once a week now? I still can't. We are so curious to hear all of your thoughts on how we are doing so far, so make sure to join our Discord server and tell us all of your thoughts, or if you listen on Spotify, you can leave comments on the episode now. And don't forget that the fan favorite Weird Club is coming back Wednesday the 29th. Get ready. We'll get into the Leviathan right after this. We all know the ocean is such a mysterious place. It covers about 71% of the planet, but only about 5% is explored. This means there are vast stretches of darkness where unknown creatures and secrets could be hiding. The ocean is a wild and mysterious place, full of crazy stuff that's both amazing and scary. And because of this, sometimes it's hard to tell what's real and what's just a myth. There are weird sounds and stories of gigantic monsters that are straight out of nightmares. The Leviathan is depicted as an immense and otherworldly beast of the deep, a creature that exudes dominance and terror. Its body is encased in a shield of impenetrable armor, with scales so seamlessly interlocked that they form an unbreakable barrier against any attack. Its jaws are lined with rows of razor-sharp teeth, and its eyes emit an intense glow, like the break of dawn piercing the darkness. The creature is said to spew flames and emit smoke, its fiery breath marking it as a force of raw, destructive energy. Towering and unyielding, the Leviathan commands the ocean with its overwhelming presence, radiating strength and defiance. A true ruler of the sea. It is described as untouchable by human hands. It's terrifying, from standing as a symbol of nature's untamed power and the mysteries hidden in the depth. This cryptid first appears in the Hebrew Bible as a powerful and fearsome sea monster, symbolizing chaos and the untamed forces of nature. It is said to have fearsome teeth, terrible eyes, and a presence that inspires both awe and terror. Several references to the Leviathan are scattered throughout the Bible, offering a glimpse into its legendary status. In Psalm 74:14, the Leviathan is depicted as a multi-headed sea serpent that God defeats to demonstrate his power over chaos. Thou breakest the head of the dragons in the waters. Similarly, in Psalm 104:25-26, the Leviathan is mentioned as a creature made by God to play in the sea. There goes the ships, there is that Leviathan, whom thou hast made to play therein. In Isaiah 27:1, the Leviathan is portrayed as a twisting serpent representing evil and chaos, and it is prophesied that God will slay it at the end of days. In that day the Lord with his sore and great and strong sword shall punish Leviathan, the piercing serpent, even Leviathan, that crooked serpent, and he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. The book of Job contains several references further expanding on the Leviathan's terrifying attributes. Job 41 describes the creature in vivid detail, making it clear that no human can subdue it. Job 41:1-2 asks, Canst thou draw out Leviathan with a hook, or his tongue with a cord which thou lettest down? Canst thou put a hook into his nose, or bore his jaw through with a thorn? In Job 41, 8-10, it is emphasized that even the bravest dare not confront it. Behold, the hope of him is in vain. Shall not one be cast down even at the sight of him? None is so fierce that dare stir him up. Who then is able to stand before me? Job 41, 14-15 states, Who can open the doors of his face? His teeth are terrible round about. His scales are his pride, shut up together as with a close seal. Other passages give even more terrifying descriptions. In Job 41, 18-21, the Leviathan's fearsome power is revealed. By his nestings a light doth shine, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. Out of his mouth go burning lamps, and sparks of fire leap out. Out of his nostrils goeth smoke, as out of seething pot or cauldron. His breath kindleth coals, and a flame goeth out of his mouth. Finally, Job 41, 33-34 declares, Upon earth there is not his like, who is made without fear. He beholdeth all high things. He is a king over all the children of pride. In addition to these major mentions, some scholars believe that other references to sea creatures or dragons in the Bible may actually all be alluding to the Leviathan. For example, in Revelations 13:1 speaks of a beast rising from the sea, which many connect to the Leviathan's mythical status. Additionally, the creature is often compared to Rahab, another sea monster mentioned in Psalm 89:10. Thou hast broken Rahab in pieces, as one that is slain. Thou hast scattered thine enemies with thy strong arm. This comparison reinforces the Leviathan's role as a symbol of chaos and power, a force that only God can conquer. What is interesting is that in these references, some interpretations see the Leviathan as a literal sea creature, while others view it as a symbolic representation of God's power over evil and chaos. But then, in Jewish folklore, the Leviathan takes on an even more profound and apocalyptic role, one that ties its fate to the ends of time. It is believed that the creature, along with Behemoth, a colossal land beast, and Ziz, a massive mythical bird, will reappear at the time of the apocalypse. These three beings are part of a divine narrative that signals the final cosmic battle between chaos and order. As the legend goes, the Leviathan will be slain in a grand confrontation, marking the moment when the forces of chaos are defeated once and for all. Once defeated, the Leviathan will be served as a part of a glorious feast for the righteous during Messianic age, a time of renewal and spiritual fulfillment. This feast will symbolize not only the triumph of God over evil, but also the restoration of divine harmony. Its flesh, too, will not go to waste. The skin of the Leviathan is said to be used to construct a shelter for his holy banquet, further connecting the creature's demise to the establishment of a new and sacred order. The destruction and consumption of the Leviathan, along with the eventual slaying of the Behemoth and Ziz, is often interpreted as a powerful symbol of cosmic renewal. In these stories, the taming of destruction of such mighty creatures resembles the defeat of chaos, allowing for the creation of divine, harmonious worlds. The act of consuming the Leviathan during this final feast is not just a physical meal, but a spiritual act, embodying the transformation of a world once ruled by disorder into one where divine order and peace reign. It's a vivid portrayal of how even in the most chaotic and fearsome of beings, there is a larger purpose and a greater cosmic plan unfolding, one that ultimately leads to the creation of a new divine order at the end of times. More on the Leviathan after this. Now, you know I love a sea creature more than anyone, but you know what I don't love? The apocalypse, and especially if it's supposed to happen next year. There are modern interpretations and conspiracies out there claiming that the Leviathan, the terrifying sea monster of legend, is set to reappear in 2026. These theories tie its return to apocalyptic prophecies and speculative readings of religious texts. The year 2026 doesn't come from any clear biblical prophecy, though. Instead, it's the product of creative speculation, with conspiracy theorists trying to calculate significant dates using biblical numerology and timelines from texts like the Book of Daniel or Revelations. For example, they often link the Leviathan to the seven-headed dragon in Revelation, interpreting it as a symbol of a monstrous entity rising again in a calculated year. 2026 has been thrown around as a year of chaos and upheaval, making it a convenient date for these theories about the Leviathan's return. But let's be real. This could all come down to mistranslations and modern reinterpretations. Take Isaiah 27:1, for example. Some people reimagine this as a literal prophecy, claiming it could mean a giant sea serpent might rise from the ocean and wreak havoc, while others think it's more figurative, like predicting a tsunami or some other natural disaster. So, while the idea of a giant sea monster crawling out of the depths is terrifying, the evidence for it happening in 2026 is, well, let's just say it's pretty thin. While there is no concrete spiritual or historical evidence supporting this specific year, it has captured the attention of those fascinated by end-day scenarios. The apocalypse may be terrifying, but you know what's even more unsettling? A massive, bottomless pit in the middle of the ocean. An abyss so deep it holds the title of the lowest point on Earth. The Mariana Trench is the deepest part of the ocean, located in the western Pacific near Guam. It's basically this massive underwater canyon that goes down about 36,000 feet, so deep that if you just drop Mount Everest into it, the peak would still be under water. It's completely pitch black down there, freezing cold, and the pressure is so intense it would crush most things instantly. But even in those extreme conditions, life somehow exists. Scientists have found strange creatures that look like they're straight out of a sci-fi movie, like glowing jellyfish and weird little crustaceans. The trench is also a place of mystery. On January 23, 1960, Swiss oceanographer Jacques Piccard and U.S. Navy Lieutenant Don Walsh made their historic dive to the bottom of the Mariana Trench aboard the Trieste. They reported seeing something strange. As they got closer to the bottom, about 36,000 feet down, they noticed a shadowy figure pass by the window of their vessel. Visibility at that depth was terrible, with only a few inches of visibility in front of them due to the darkness and murky water, so they couldn't make out exactly what it was. The encounter has remained a mystery. Some think it might have been an unknown deep-sea creature, maybe a giant squid, or some bizarre fish adapted to life in the depths. But Piccard and Walsh couldn't give a definitive answer, and whatever they saw has kept people speculating. Cryptozoologists and conspiracy theorists even wonder if it could have been something more extraordinary, an undiscovered species, or even a cryptid living in the trench. The two explorers later confirmed the sighting in interviews, but with no way to identify the figure in the poor visibility, it's become one of those ocean mysteries that fuels the imagination. While their dive was a major milestone for ocean exploration, this strange encounter only adds to the intrigue of what could be lurking in one of the darkest parts of our planet. There hasn't been a lot of evidence in the modern world of this mythical sea creature, but what if I were to tell you that there was a sound captured in the ocean that may have come from the Leviathan? They called it the bloop. Sounds innocent, right? Like something from a kid's cartoon? And yet, it is far from innocent. In 1997, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, first recorded the bloop, an ultra-low frequency sound described as both eerie and powerful. This sound was unlike anything scientists had ever heard before, and it immediately sparked a flurry of speculation and curiosity in both scientific and cryptozoological circles. The bloop was particularly noteworthy because of how it was detected. Multiple hydrophones positioned across thousands of miles in the Pacific Ocean picked up the sound, indicating that whatever caused it was enormous, something far larger than any known creature in the ocean. At first, the scientists who detected the bloop were uncertain what it was. The sound was a distinct, repetitive, and low-frequency noise that didn't match anything previously recorded from known oceanic phenomena. The sound was so loud that it was picked up from sensors located in the Pacific Ocean, and its volume suggested that it came from something massive. At first, researchers didn't know what to make of it. Was it an animal, a natural underwater event, or something else entirely? That's when theories went wild. Due to its immense volume and the fact that it resembled the sounds created by living creatures, the vocalizations of whales or elephants, many early speculations pointed to a giant sea creature, possibly a massive, previously unknown species. The idea of sea monsters lurking in the depths, something similar to the legendary Leviathan or other mythical beasts, gained traction amongst the cryptozoological field. They believed that this deep-sea creature, which could be the size of a whale or even larger, might have been the source of the bloop, and it fueled speculation that something truly monstrous was hiding in the unexplored regions of the ocean. In fact, when the NOAA first analyzed the bloop, the initial thought was that it might have been the sound of an extremely large marine animal, possibly an undiscovered species, or very large deep ocean predator like a giant squid or the mythical kraken. The sound was loud, powerful, and spread over such a large area that it seemed like the only logical explanation was something very large and powerful making the noise. Cryptozoologists jumped on this idea, with many arguing that it could have been the Leviathan itself, the ancient sea monster that had appeared in various myths and religious texts for centuries. However, after further investigation, the NOAA scientists revisited the sound, and in 2001 concluded that the bloop was not the sound of an animal at all. Instead, it was attributed to a natural phenomenon: icebergs cracking or caving underwater. This conclusion came after analyzing the sound's frequency and pattern, which seemed to match those produced by ice fractures. Icebergs, particularly massive ones, can break off from glaciers and move through the water in ways that create deep, resonant sounds, which can travel great distances. While the iceberg explanation was a reasonable and scientifically sound theory, it did little to quell the intrigue and mystery surrounding the bloop. The sound was still remarkably strange and mysterious, and it left many unanswered questions about the depths of the ocean. Despite the NOAA's conclusion, the bloop continues to fuel discussion amongst those who are still convinced that the ocean holds secrets far beyond what science has yet discovered. It became a topic of debate for years, with some cryptozoologists maintaining that the mystery had only deepened, and as the real source of the sound had never truly been identified. There has been some buzz online about supposed Google Earth sightings of a Leviathan-like creature near Antarctica. We know that Google Earth photos are taken by satellites in space so that we can see more than anything we'd be able to see on the ground or even in a plane. So, that would be a great tool for finding a giant sea serpent in the ocean. Well, that is exactly what people think happened. The claim usually involves strange shapes or shadows spotted in satellite imagery, like a massive object in the ocean that some say resembles a giant creature. One of the most notable claims involves a massive shadowy shape captured near Deception Island, part of the South Shetland Islands near Antarctica. The image appears to show the head of a long serpent-like object in the water, and let me tell you, it does look very odd for sure. Some say that this is evidence of the Leviathan, or another colossal sea monster, while others argue it might just be a particularly submerged iceberg, or a school of whales or fish, or even distortions in the satellite image itself. Others say that it is just the height of the seafloor mixed with a case of pareidolia, where people see familiar patterns or shapes, like a sea monster, in normal data, like Google Earth imagery. More on the Leviathan right after this. In 2007, the US set sail to Japan to reinforce a naval defense. The voyage was set to take 12 days. The first 7 days went well, but on the 9th day, they could see they were approaching a large storm system. So they reported it to the captain and asked if they should steer clear or sail through. The captain, being a high-ranking naval officer and very experienced, decided it was best to go through it rather than changing course and delaying their arrival. As they got closer, the waves got bigger and bigger, the biggest waves any of them had ever seen. The sky turned black, then came the pouring rain, then came the lightning. Reports came from multiple crew members saying that they could see the tail of a giant sea creature thrashing in the water. Then the ship began to shake, and they could see something circling the ship. They tried to get a hold of the naval base and other ships to send a mayday request, but the storm was so severe they couldn't. That's when they started hearing something banging against the ship, when all of a sudden there was a pop. There was a giant hole in the side of the ship. The captain then started the abandoned ship procedure, and the crew raced to their lifeboats. Once they hit the water in the lifeboats, the storm pushed them further from the ship until they couldn't see it anymore. But they heard a loud crash and reported seeing water splashing high in the air and saw the tail of the creature with it. Then, on Saturday, August 19th, 2003, a pilot named Robert Smith was not a pilot by career, but he loved flying his Senso 105, which is a small civilian plane. He took it out for a flight over the Atlantic Ocean because he loved seeing the water from above. It was perfect weather, clear skies, a day where he would be able to look down into the sea and sometimes see whales, sharks, and other large marine animals. As he was heading back to land, he noticed something enormous in the water. At first, he thought it was a whale, but then he realized it was too big, and then thought it must be a trick of light. He estimated it to be around 500 feet, and it looked like a sea serpent. He decided to go down and try to get a better look, so he flew right above the water. He radioed his friend, who was fishing in the area, and joked that he just saw a sea monster. But then his friend reported he said, "Oh my God, it's right under me." And then the radio went dead. His friend contacted the Coast Guard, and they went over to search, but saw nothing. 3 days later, a part of his plane was found at the bottom of a shallower part of the ocean, and it had what looked to be bite marks. Now, these stories don't have any news articles to back them up, but they are a part of the Leviathan story, so I think it is important to hear. But there is a theory that has gained widespread fame and speculations that isn't too far off from this last story. There is a theory that NASA built a giant cage in the ocean to contain sea monsters and massive cryptid-like creatures. This theory gained traction in online communities and conspiracy theory circles. NASA has always been about space exploration, but they also have sectors that investigate oceans as well. According to the theory, NASA discovered enormous prehistoric or cryptid-like creatures in the deep ocean, possibly even creatures like the Leviathan, the Kraken, Megalodon, or other unidentified monsters. To prevent these creatures from surfacing and wreaking havoc, NASA allegedly constructed a massive underwater cage or containment structure to trap and study these creatures. They call it Zone F. The theorized location of this giant cage varies depending on who is telling the story. Some suggest it's somewhere in the remote South Pacific, where ocean depths are extreme and human access is limited. Others point to the Atlantic off the coast of Maryland, or even the Mariana Trench, where it is possible such a massive structure could remain hidden. A popular legend surrounding Zone F tells a story of a fisherman named George Mayers, who was deep-sea fishing off the Maryland coast, when a storm pushed him further out to sea than he intended. While dealing with engine trouble, he noticed a massive grid-like pattern in the water, resembling a cage. Driven by curiosity, Mayers dove into the water to investigate, and discovered it was an enormous underwater cage with the inscription, Zone F, property of NASA, keep out. The bars were spaced far enough apart for him to swim through, but the cage seemed to extend all the way to the sea floor. As he was surfacing for air, Mayers heard a loud banging noise against the cage. He got air and went straight back under, and what he saw terrified him. He reported seeing the tail of a giant shark swimming away from the cage wall, right where he was swimming before. He estimated the shark to be around 70 feet long. Shaken by the experience, Mayers immediately returned to shore. 2 weeks later, he mustered the courage to revisit the site, but the cage had vanished without a trace. The connection to NASA stems from the idea that the agency's deep-sea exploration uncovered evidence of massive unknown life forms. Supporters of the theory speculate that NASA's deep ocean missions were abruptly halted because these creatures were deemed too dangerous, and efforts were redirected to monitoring and containing them instead. The whole theory implies that the world's governments, especially the US, are aware of the existence of these creatures, but keep it classified to prevent public panic. And so the construction of the underwater cage is thought to be a part of a secret global initiative to protect humanity from potential harm caused by these creatures. Now, when it comes to documented sightings, there really aren't any modern-day ones, but tales of massive sea monsters have persisted across cultures for centuries. And as we know from the Kraken or colossal and giant squids, there are occasionally sonar readings from deep-sea expeditions that have revealed massive moving objects that defy explanation. These blips are often attributed to whales, underwater geological formations, or equipment errors, but some enthusiasts claim that it could be evidence of enormous unknown creatures. At the end of the day, the ocean is still about 80% undiscovered, with no real plan to investigate all of it, so maybe these mysteries will persist. The Leviathan has transcended its biblical origins and entered pop culture as a symbol of unfathomable power and terror. It has appeared in famous books like Moby Dick, Paradise Lost, films like Clash of the Titans and Pacific Rim, video games where it is often depicted as a massive sea monster or boss-level enemy, and even in music, where it is often used as a metaphor for chaos and overwhelming forces. Whether seen as a symbolic force of chaos, a misunderstood biblical metaphor, or a real creature lurking in the depths of the ocean, the Leviathan's legend persists and intrigues us all. More on the Leviathan right after this. With a cryptid this massive, both physically and metaphorically, there are a lot of theories or possibilities of what the Leviathan really could be, or what people could be seeing. The first one is that perhaps this cryptid is a prehistoric marine reptile. The Leviathan is often described as an enormous sea creature with massive size and strength that aligns with descriptions of prehistoric marine reptiles, such as the Mosasaurus or Plesiosaurus, which were apex predators of ancient oceans. Modern discoveries of deep-sea fossils, the vast unexplored nature of the oceans, and occasional reports of massive unidentified aquatic creatures lend credibility to the idea that the prehistoric creatures could still exist, which leads to another theory, that it might just be a megalodon, the prehistoric shark thought to be extinct. Maybe these two creatures are the same, which would bring in the Zone F sighting. Now, there are some descriptions of the Leviathan that describe it as having tentacles as well. The descriptions of a tentacled beast or a creature with a terrifying presence might point to a creature we know very well, a giant squid or the Kraken. These elusive creatures are known to grow up to 40+ feet in length and inhabit deep waters. Giant squid were once considered mythical, like the Kraken, until they were proven real. Their rarity and mysterious nature fuel speculation that even larger unknown species might exist. Given its imposing presence in biblical texts, it could also be interpreted as a symbolic figure rather than a literal creature. In this context, it might just represent chaos, evil, or divine power, embodying concepts that are central to religious narratives. Its appearance in various ancient texts, including the Bible and Near Eastern mythologies, further support this interpretation, and its symbolic potential extends beyond a single meaning. It could represent the untamed forces of nature, the power of the divine, or the struggle between good and evil. Its vastness and power are described in these texts, give us a way to imagine and understand ideas that are usually hard to grasp. The biggest explanation is that the Leviathan may not be a creature at all, but rather a natural phenomena misinterpreted as a living being. Examples include underwater volcanic activity, large waves, or the movement of tectonic plates. Sounds like the bloop have been explained by natural phenomena, such as icebergs cracking, which could give rise to myths about enormous sea creatures. And combined with fear of the unknown and the human tendency to create stories around strange experiences, can create a terrifying beast. It is a fact that a lot of the cryptid sightings and mythical creatures stem from exaggerations, misidentifications, or cultural storytelling passed down through generations. Doesn't mean that some cryptids aren't real, but there will always be stories in every cryptid's case that fall into that category. The deep ocean represents one of the most mysterious and least understood places on Earth. This fear and curiosity drive people to believe in creatures like the Leviathan. The ocean's vastness and the fact that so much of it remains unexplored leave room for speculation, and with that, witness accounts of enormous underwater shapes, strange fins, or unidentified creatures that have been reported by sailors, fishermen, and deep-sea explorers. These sightings, though unverified, keep the legend alive. Throughout history, sailors and explorers have reported encounters with massive and mysterious sea creatures. But large marine animals like whales, oarfish, or basking sharks have been misidentified as sea monsters in the past. These misidentifications could contribute to Leviathan sightings. I mean, with ongoing exploration of the deep sea and advancements in technology, who knows? We might one day uncover a creature that finally lives up to the Leviathan's terrifying reputation. Maybe sooner than we think, seeing as 2026 is just next year. Until then, though, the Leviathan remains a fascinating mystery, one that ties together ancient mythology, unexplored frontiers, and the fear of what might be hiding in the depths of our oceans. So, what do you think? Is the Leviathan really out there? Be sure to follow us on Instagram @OutThereCryptids for episode posts, updates, and more. Join our community on Discord, where we dive even deeper into the mysteries we explore here on the podcast. The link can be found on our Instagram, and if you're loving the show, consider supporting us on Patreon. As a patron, you'll get exclusive perks like bonus episodes, early access, and even more surprises. See you next week.